Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Chris Groot. We are here for Coffee Break Session 4. So this is the fourth in a series of webcasts that we've done throughout the last several months. And this particular webinar is entitled Privileged Credential Protection in Co-Managed IT Environments. So we're going to dig into exactly what that means here in just a minute. If you are interested in the previous sessions, they are available on YouTube under the SolarWinds Pass Portal channel, so you can search for that. So before we go any further, a little bit about me. My name is Chris Groot. As mentioned, I'm Vice President of Sales today with SolarWinds MSP. So I've worked with the company for over 6 years and worked in both product management and sales roles. A little bit of my historical DNA has been with SolarWinds Backup, and really excited in the last 12 months to get involved with SolarWinds Pass Portal. I've been around the software industry for many years, but none of that's very interesting to you. So let's move on to just a couple of housekeeping items. So all attendees are on mute. So if you do have questions, please use the chat window. We encourage you to ask questions as we go along. If you do have any audio or video issues, please also alert us via the chat. We're going to be watching that. Just sometimes surprises pop up and we can fix them in real time. And the last thing to know is that this session is being recorded. So if you do happen to miss part of it, you can catch up on that at a later date. So what are we here to cover in the next 30 minutes? If you are in an environment where you've a co-managed environment where you need to share passwords, the key is that you need to do it securely. So first, we're going to dig into and set the stage on exactly what that means. Within that, we're going to discuss a little deeper in terms of the broader picture, in terms of how the security landscape is changing and why this matters within that changing landscape. And then last, we're going to cover 3 tips that specifically dig into how to execute on this and securely collaborate and share credentials. And finally, at the end of the session, we will save time for the Q&A. So as mentioned, do provide your questions in the chat, and we will get them answered. So today we have a very special guest with us, Colin Knox. He is the founder of Pass Portal, longtime man inside the world of MSP. So he worked for 3 MSPs before founding his own. He grew that to 22 team members, 4 million revenue, and then moved it on and founded Pass Portal, which was actually a solution to the problem that he had in terms of managing his own MSP. So I'll just pause and let Colin say hello and maybe share a bit about his own story.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Chris. Thanks. Happy to be here. Yeah, I think today's session will be really good. Talking a little bit about co-managed IT and that as an entire avenue for MSPs, but kind of some of the key things to think about and some takeaways about doing so in a secure and even accountable manner. One of the things that led to some of the quick growth that we had at Excel was having a semi-focus on co-managed IT. So recognizing that there was only so many businesses where you could go and displace another MSP, or you could convince an entire company to displace their entire IT team in place of outsourcing. And so we saw finding a strong way to essentially just help accentuate the success of IT for a business by collaborating with internal IT resources and showing how we could help them in any of their shortfalls, whether that be on the lower end tier 1 type stuff on the help desk desktop support side, or whether that was on the top end in the network administration, systems administration side of things. So yeah, so let's step in here a little bit. And I guess, if you're doing co-managed IT today, or if you're looking at it, one of those key challenges are how you can securely collaborate and share credentials and these privileged credentials again between your team and an internal IT team. So dealing with co-managed IT environments, sometimes it is a complete joint effort across the entire spectrum of IT services for an organization. Sometimes, again, it's an offset that the MSP deals with certain components and the internal IT department deals with other components. So it can be a big challenge when you're looking at managing these IT systems across two different teams and doing concurrent work on systems. And so you start to come down to what are the best ways and how can two different organizations essentially maintain collaboratively and support the IT systems and avoid things like, somebody has to change a password or somebody just changes a password, the other party could get locked out and unable to work, or things aren't documented properly, or just controlling who has access to these things. And at the end of the day, when a change made or a disruption to the client's business has occurred, being able to essentially have a level of accountability to prove who had done certain actions on that network or IT system. So, this is one of those things where just comes up a lot, Chris, that finding that way to provide transparency between both teams and make sure that there's that layer of security, and at the end of the day, ensuring that the client organization is getting the best service possible and the best experience possible with minimal finger pointing.
So not stepping on each other's toes is what I'm hearing.
That is the big thing. And if you're going to step on toes, it's going to be tracked. So we have a little bit of a poll today for the attendees that will open up, but just getting an idea of how you're sharing access to credentials in co-managed environments today. One of the options, obviously, both teams using the same admin credentials, which in various cases, when you're dealing with a specific service or functional area of IT, is almost an absolute requirement, whereas in other areas it's a lot easier to create separate admin credentials and whatnot. And then where you are having to share them, are you using another thing? So what do the results say here?
Well, it looks like 38% today are using the same admin credentials. So, and it's pretty balanced actually relative between the three here. Each team managing their own credentials for each service is a quarter of people that responded. And 38% again are using a collaborative management system.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and it kind of comes down to the fact that in a lot of cases, it has to be the same credential, because for the backup service or for the databasing engine, it's using a single service admin credential. And so in order to manage and maintain those systems, you kind of have to be able to share that and use the same credential. So if we talk about a few things, digging in on why password management is so important in co-managed IT, I mean, all the things and all the same statistics still resonate, right? Is if you're trying to co-manage and using a simple password that's going to be memorable across all of these technicians and team members that are trying to use it, or not rotating them frequently as people are coming and going, or just on a regular basis, the facts still remain that 81% of breaches are due to poor passwords. And so having a proper password management solution that you can collaborate in, that helps empower that ability and essentially enable you to use strong, complex credentials that are rotated on a regular basis. And I don't have to dig too deep into all of the statistics around what happens when a data breach occurs, because it's quite well known. It's quite staggering. But overall, it's just a matter of making sure that you're using proper password management. The other part of it is IT overall is a high turnover industry, whether it's in your MSP and IT service provider company, or if it's in your end client's business and organization. You now have two separate teams and two organizations that are experiencing turnover at their own independent rates. And as you have more people cycling in and out of that organization or that total bridged team, You need to realize that some of these stats remain, again, that if somebody's used a credential that hasn't been changed, 90%, nearly 90% of them are retaining access to at least one of the applications or services, and 49% are still admitting to logging into and using those accounts from their former employer. So this is where it becomes ever more important when you're dealing with the heightened risk of people turning over in the organization or in your business, and the risk to the client at the end of the day.
And I think
So
just add in there the simple statement of that the easiest way to prevent 81% of breaches is through passwords is a pretty important statement that you can't pass over too quickly.
yeah, no, absolutely. So let's jump into quick tip one, kind of obvious one, but to deploy a collaborative environment, right? Again, inside your MSP, surprisingly, and there's a lot of MSPs that haven't implemented an overall, privileged access management or privileged password management solution. But the visibility inside your own MSP in a controlled environment is a lot easier to achieve. But when you're managing the access across your SMB clients and those businesses that you may be co-managing IT, it becomes a lot more difficult of where is the data stored, where are the passwords being managed and stored from, how are you sharing that information, is it being shared in a secure manner, does it have granular access control on it, are you able to run audits and reports to understand and know who's done what work? I mean, early on when my MSP was doing co-managed IT, we had a few times where something would stop working, or there would be a configuration that was changed on the client network, and while we were pretty sure it was the internal IT person that had maybe made a change, we had no way to prove that. We had no way to prove that they had gone in and retrieved the credential and logged in with the system, and we had no way to disprove that it wasn't a member of our team, even though everybody said that it wasn't them. So really came into a lot of finger pointing and issues. And again, at the end of the day, the client and the business owners and management team of your end business clients, they don't care who did it or what, or even what happened. They care about it being solved. They care about it not happening again in the future. So it some of the reasons that overall you should care. One is this improves password management for your customer environments. It helps you to, and your internal IT teams that you're collaborating with, automatically adhere to password management best practices of cycling passwords, using stronger passwords, having an audited and access control solution. It drives accountability because of the auditing. If you're able to come back at any point in time and see who gained access to a client system and made a change, or attribute that to when an outage occurred, it drives accountability. It not only that, but it drives the awareness that everybody's aware that they're working in a tracked system. So they're less likely to go rogue. They're less likely to do something that's not quite as calculated, and without even conferring with the other team. So overall, this helps to prevent security incidents, right? You've got a frequently rotated credential that's access controlled, that's a strong password. It's less likely that it's gone out there. It's less likely with turnover that it's gone out there, and just overall helps increase the overall security profile. And the biggest thing, again, is eliminating that finger pointing. Whether it's you and your team that needs to take accountability, that's fine, right? Because when an issue happens and a mistake is made, that's a learning opportunity, but it's also a learning opportunity of how to mitigate those in the future. The finger pointing game's never fun, but there are points and times where this could save your contract, could save your business, and can even help earn you more business by proving the quality and maturity of your operation.
Yeah, and even just being able to prove that, to provide that information, in light of who's accountable through the audit, that just makes it a lot cleaner of a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Jumping into quick tip two is protect access with MFA. I mean, this is a theme you're going to hear. You've heard a lot about this year. You're going to hear even more about it over 2020. But multi-factor authentication is just one of those things, and it's an absolute no-brainer in any environment, especially when you're using shared credentials, because not only does that pare down who has access to credential and who use them in many cases, but it also makes sure that the right person is using those. And should they leave your organization, you're less likely that they can reuse a credential. In fact, there's a statistic out there by Microsoft that says you're 99.9% less likely to be compromised when using MFA. Now, that obviously doesn't always protect you when you're dealing with insider threats and friendly threats, doesn't always protect you for various services that maybe still don't support MFA, or in the events where using a shared MFA becomes difficult. But overall, integrating MFA into your privileged access management solution is a no-brainer and is available, because that way, when it comes to the auditing and compliance, not only are you saying that somebody logged in with John or Jane's account to grab a credential or use a credential for something, but that you also verified the identity that was in fact them. There's no more out to say, well, it wasn't me, my computer was left logged in, I walked away, maybe somebody used it, grabbed it, did whatever. This protects against all of that. So really verifying that identity, and we've seen a heavy amount of adoption of MFA across the consumer space, with even becoming a near mandatory facet of authenticating into many social media systems. But then we still hear about all of these MSPs that are having major compromises because they don't have MFA turned on in their remote control tool, and the remote connective tool, their RMM tool, and other solutions like that, where credentials got exposed, credentials were compromised, and MFA wasn't required. And so these groups were gone out. I mean, just this week again, we're hearing in Colorado about 100 dental practices which were hit with ransomware at a root cause because of poor password management practices and not having MFA enabled on the remote control tool that MSP was using. So one, it's a win for you guys because it gives you an additional layer of protection for customers. Another win that we didn't put on here, it's a revenue opportunity for you. If you can start selling the MFA into your clients, even to the internal IT departments of those that you're co-managing with, it drives additional revenue, it drives additional stickiness, and it helps elevate the profile and business conversation and security conversation that you're having with your clients on a regular basis.
Yeah, awesome. Easy win, but big impact.
Absolutely. And then we'll get into the last quick tip here before we talk a little bit about some other stuff and open up for some Q&A. Quick tip 3 is perform regular reviews of access rights. And this is something that's so often overlooked and so often forgotten about, even within the MSPs. As at SolarWinds Passportal, so we're SOC 2 certified, and part of having that compliance and having that certification comes down to the fact that you do regular access right reviews across all of the applications, all of the services, all of the systems that you're supporting and using and working with in order to manage and operate your business. If you think about it, it's one of those things that we can have all the SOPs and checklists in the world, but IT is so dynamic. It's always evolving. There's always a new solution out there that's coming in. There's always employees that are coming and going. There's employees that are changing positions, getting promotions, moving to different departments. And so performing a regular review every 3 or even 6 months of every single application that you have and use to operate both inside your business and in your clients' businesses, to make sure that you know who has access to those systems. And if it happened to be missed that somebody was let go or somebody left the organization and their account is still active and valid, as we know happens 89% of the time, you at least know you're going to catch that within that 3 to 6 month window and say, oh my gosh, we forgot to move John or Jane off of that system. Well, now we can, right? And again, it all happens that, coming through and realizing that this person maybe needed access to a system at a point in time with their position, but they no longer do. So it really helps to make sure that you always know what's happened. You're reporting yourself for compliance. You're making sure that you're closing that gap on potential risk and open holes and vulnerabilities to your clients. the thing is that it's even more difficult in a co-managed environment where you're dealing with, again, turnover inside your client's organization and not knowing who's maybe had things shared to, who had access to things. So being able to go through and review this in your QBRs with a client, say, hey, should all of these people still have access? Is there people that should be added to this list for accessing these systems? Is there people that should be taken away? Again, it's taking you to that next level of business consulting and security awareness to make sure that things are protected. And overall, this keeps you in better touch with your customer, better touch with what's happening inside their business. It enhances how you're collaborating with them and improves customer retention. If there was a data breach or data compromise event because a regular access review wasn't done, and one of those 89% of people retained access to something, and one of those 49% of people made and used that access to perform something, in most cases that becomes the end of the relationship between you and your client. And so this is another step you can take to really mitigate those incidents from occurring and retain your customers and show how you've taken all of these steps to mitigate the risks that face their business.
Great. And so just maybe one add-on question for you here, Colin, then so in terms of providing a proof of value or establishing a culture of security with your clients, and then understanding that's part of the value you're providing, like how does an MSP do that in light of this particular topic?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. The one thing is you need to always be having a conversation about security, but it can be very difficult to just bring that up, right? Of, hey, it's time to talk about security. How do you do this? It's a lot easier when you have, typical processes, steps, and procedures and policies to follow that help essentially break the ice on the conversation, right?
Right.
So for you to sit down in a quarterly business review and say, okay, guys, it's time now that we do our regular access right review. They may be like, oh, interesting. So why are we doing it? It's one of those icebreakers that says, okay, this is great. So this is something that, and then you kind of peel the onion back and start talking a little bit more about the explanation of this is why we do this. This is the risks that your organization faces, and this is what we're trying to mitigate by doing so. And that kind of opens up the dialogue more of, well, what else should we be doing? What other policies should we have in place? What other, regular motions should we be going through to mitigate all of these risks that our organization faces? And so it's having a number of these types of conversations and topics and even action items to undertake with your clients that starts to unravel that conversation, starts to make it more commonplace for them and become part of what they're thinking about in their everyday. Instead of just coming into your QBRs and talking about, well, this is how many tickets we closed, this is how fast we responded to every ticket, this is what our average resolution time was, this was our customer satisfaction rating over the period, and here's a 10,000 page report on all of the metrics and reporting of processor utilization and RAM utilization and disk space across all of your assets. Now you're having a business conversation with them. You're actually presenting an actual and viable risk to their organization that they maybe didn't think of before, and showing how you've taken that next step and how you're helping assert yourself to protect their business. And you can use that as a stepping stone into a variety of different topics. One of those topics, obviously, being bringing up password management as a whole for their organization. So not only can you leverage the Passportal and Passportal site solution as a way to collaboratively co-manage access to credentials and audit rights and automation and security, but you can use it as another step up that the rest of their organization can use. So it's not just the IT department is needing to use this. While it's very powerful in a co-managed use case, but it also gives them the ability to take password management to the next level across their entire organization. From, it doesn't matter if it's the receptionist, accounts payable, somebody in engineering or sales, they're all using systems all day, every day, and using inherently weak passwords, not rotating those passwords, and leaving themselves prone to attack and compromise over and over again. So having the ability to, one, extend your own brand, increase the level of stickiness with your clients, but also being able to monetize that and be able to generate some net new revenue, and again, increase that attachment that you have to your client, increase their overall security profile, and take it through. So we've built a solution that essentially goes across any device or platform that allows you to have your brand extended to your clients in the web portal that you may be collaborating over for reporting and access control, through the browser extensions as they're logging into a whole lot of systems and web services, and minimizing even the amount of passwords that they need to know to do what they're doing, but being able to use those passwords. And then of course, down to the mobile apps for when they're trying to gain access from their mobile devices, or if they're out on a field call or anything like that. So really helps drive your business forward that way, helps ease this concern, and really helps making co-managed IT a lot easier by really eliminating all that finger pointing that can come into play, and having them and being able to utilize this automation that comes with the base Passportal solution to help your IT admins and co-admins understand and be able to work in a more secure environment.
So
before we jump into some Q&A, if you want to learn more about Passportal, if you want to learn more about the site solution and what it can do and the various use cases that you have for that, type demo in the questions panel here. Go to the schedule a demo page on our website, request a demo, or send us an email. We're happy to connect with you guys and share more about the solution, talk a little bit more about how we can empower you when it comes to co-managed IT and overall secure IT service delivery. And then we do have a special promotion going on until the end of December here. So this is the month to buy, where for a limited time we'll give you up to $5,000 in market development funds to support your approach with password management as a service, or even help you approach and convince the internal IT departments that you're co-managing with to adopt a solution like this. So yeah, all you have to do, type apply now in the Q&A panel, and somebody will follow up with you to get started. So let's enter into some Q&A.
all right, so let me pull up the panel here. All right, so one question that came in was, does Site have all the same features as the version of Passportal that the MSP uses?
So when it comes to the straight password management, the interactions, the access control, sharing, and auditing, absolutely yes. The base Passportal solution has the automation agent built in, which does password change automation across any Microsoft directory service. That doesn't come with Site, but typically if you're deploying Site to a client, you've already deployed the agent on the Passportal base level to your client environment, so they get the natural and inherent benefit of that.
Right. All right. So the question here is with Site. So I guess we've mostly focused on the shared password between internal IT and the customer potentially, or sorry, the MSP and the internal IT. The question, if I read it correctly, is asking about the passwords that aren't shared with the MSP. So if you're internal IT or employee at the company, can this be used for other passwords that aren't shared?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So you have all of the gated access control and capabilities. So one of the unique things about the way that Passportal's approached this is that every MSP and every end client actually live within their own separate encryption domains within our system. So what that means is all of your data is held, protected, and secure to each unique organization, whether to your client or to yourselves as an MSP. With that, you actually have two different storage containers as well. So, but we're able to display and present the data as if it looks to be a very similar thing. So within the client vault on the MSP side, you selectively choose what you want to share to your client. So you may have credentials in there that bridge across numerous clients, let's say, but you wanted to have a copy of a multi-tenant admin credential in the client. You don't have to share that with your end client, and they won't even know that that exists or stored in the system. Or there may be, again, it could be a very strict scope of engagement between the MSP and the client, and you may be managing the upper echelon of the network services and systems admin, whereas they're doing the tier 1 stuff. So you can share maybe some domain admin credentials, but you're not sharing the virtualization cluster credentials or the high availability firewall routing credentials for management and administration. So you can choose exactly what you share, and it's the same thing on their side. You know, they're likely the owners and champions and with the internal IT team of various cloud services and line of business applications that they're using in some cases. So they don't need to share that to you, and that actually helps limit your own liability as an MSP. And then the beauty is, since you both live in these different encryption domains, even if there happened to be some sort of data crossover or whatever, that data wouldn't be able to be read. So it has to be an explicit share of a piece of information. And then even down to that, you can choose what granularity you want to share. Do you just want to share the current version of the password, or do you want to share the entire history of the password and what's happened with it in the past? Do you want to give them read-only access, or do you want to give them read-write, and even varying degrees of access across numerous people in the opposing organization? So it's very flexible that way.
Amazing. So a couple more came in here. The first one, is it possible to copy the slides because it's 3 a.m. where I'm at?
Absolutely.
Thank you for attending. Yes, this will be available, and people will be able to access it as well as on our YouTube channel. Second question here: does this fully integrate with MSP within Central to auto log into machines using Take Control?
Yes, so that is one of the best integrations that we have is with Take Control, the remote control tool by SolarWinds. You have the ability when launching a remote session to select which credential you want to log in with and have that autofill into the remote session and process the authentication. So there's no possibility to stop or intercept that credential. So it truly is a matter where a technician can simply use a credential to gain access to a device or system and not need to know that, but we still audit everything around it. It's probably one of our most popular integrations for sure.
Yeah, great. Next one came in is asking, are shared username and passwords displayed when shared?
So at the base level, it's showing in a listing of credentials that somebody has access to. It will show the username, a description, a categorization of what the credential is for, but it won't immediately show the password. They need to open and view that record and then audit it, and they will have the ability to view it. Now, a lot of MSPs bring this up, and I'm guessing part of the root of the question is because you want to live in a world where technicians never know passwords, because again, they come and go from your organization. And while that as a future is something that we aspire to achieve completely, what we've done to mitigate that risk in the event of turnover is being able to pair auditing, so we know at any point in time exactly which credentials are compromised by which users. And that's not all the passwords they have access to. It's not all the credentials that they've ever seen or used. It's what they've seen or used, and that credential has not been changed since that point in time, down to the second. And then what we do is we pair that with our automation across Microsoft Windows, Active Directory on-premise in the cloud, Azure Active Directory, and Office 365, so that when you disable a technician's account, we pair that to the auditing log of exactly what passwords or credentials are compromised, and then pair that to any of those that are integrated with a Microsoft service, and automatically generate unique, strong credentials and make those credential changes across all of your client environments for you. And not just changing the password, but then going out and searching on the local network for any Windows services or scheduled tasks that depend on those credentials, and update the configurations of said services and scheduled tasks.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, I
All
think
right.
out of respect for everybody's time, we are out of time here. But if there was any questions that came in, we'll be sure to take them and have somebody on our team get back to you with an answer today to help you out and everything else. So really appreciate everybody's time to attend today. Greatly appreciate you, Chris, for hosting and having me. And look forward to doing more of these sessions in the future.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Colin, and thanks again to everyone who attended.